All right, what's up, Guy Shine? This is Steven, Jake, and Kaden, the Phantology Wheel of Time crew, bringing you another Wheel of Time episode. Obviously, we're into Book 9 now, Winter's Heart. If you're just tuning in, Jake is our expert. I am our host of varied knowledge, and Kaden is our first time reader. So we're kind of taking this through a lens of a first time reader. There's not going to be any spoilers past Book 9. So, Kaden, I guess we just have to start. How was Winter's Heart for you?
I like Winter's Heart. I think I mentioned in the last podcast that I was enjoying, I guess, what book eight more than I had the previous book
Okay.
seven. I'm sorry, I can't even remember the names at this point where which book has what name, so I
Path of
won't mess it
Daggers,
up. But
right?
yeah. And I agree. I liked Winter's Heart as well. I thought it was right on about the same level as book eight. It was shorter, had a bigger ending than which was I think the past few books. I think it's been since really book six, and that big Demise Wells was kind of like the last big ending of a book, if I remember right. So that was exciting. Overall, I did like it. So
So you need the big Sanderlanche climax in order to really have a book be good. You require that at the. I mean, I'm kind of joking, but I'm also serious. Like, is that something that really makes a book good for you?
50-50. I don't think it has to be the full huge, war at the end, but I do like having things happen and not just be. I think Path of Daggers, a lot of things are set up. There's no really, and it's a lot of plot setup, not so much a lot of any resolution. And in this book, there's at least some resolution, which I do enjoy having some of both.
Yeah, it's kind of your classical like three act
I,
structure, right? At the end, you have to have things come together from the previous parts of the book. I'm with you. I really enjoy the Sanderlanche.
Yeah, and we talked about last time that Path of Daggers was more of a book for the Dark Friends, right? There weren't any big achievements for any
Mm-hmm.
of the main characters, which in this book there definitely was. Like there's a really good climax and ending to it.
I'll say too of the endings. I think this one was the most is written the most compellingly, if that makes sense. I thought Robert Jordan did a really good job. I don't know, in kind of like in all the Sanderlanches, there you're switching between points of view so rapidly, but you still get like the whole
Mm-hmm.
view of what's going on. And I thought Robert Jordan did it that better in this book than he had in previous books. Or maybe I'm just getting more into it, but I I like that. From his writing, I felt like he progressed and it flowed better.
Yeah, the whole ending sequence hops between a lot of different POVs, some more minor, and that really helps kind of describe the battle so you're not just stuck seeing through like random naive's eyes who aren't seeing everything. This way you can get the full scope of what's going on. So yeah, and Sanderson was probably inspired. We need to stop being such Sanderson fanboys on these episodes, but I guess we just are. Obviously he was, he took a lot of what Jordan did, so this was probably some of it.
Yeah, definitely.
So important to know on this book that a lot of the events of Crossroads of Twilight are happening actually at the same time as Winter's Heart. So at the beginning you have the Perrin chapters, and then there's nothing else for Perrin. So then some things that the Perrin stuff in the next book happens, I guess, at the same time. And there's probably some other things as well, which we'll get into more when you get to Crossroads of Twilight. But it's a little bit like, I know you haven't read this series, Jake, or Kaden, Jake, you have, but it's like the Song of Ice and Fire books four and
Yeah.
five are happening same time, two different sets of viewpoints.
Yeah, it's always with series that get so big as Wheel of Time and Crossroads and A Song of Ice and Fire. There's just so many characters and like the plots are so far apart and these different plot lines that are happening that um, I feel like authors feel like they're forced to do that because I've heard people weren't very satisfied with it in the Wheel of Time community when it first happened. And same with the Song of Ice and Fire. They like fans weren't as happy about it. Um, so I wonder how much of it was it's just like you have to do that because the story is too big.
It's just so wide. There's such a huge scope. that
Yeah.
it's impossible to get a arc of one book without,
Yeah.
like, it's impossible to contain every character but still get it into a book that is feasible and it has a nice climax for Kaden. So you've got to split it up into two. I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so also in Winter's Heart, Matt is back. He was absent after the wall fell on him in the previous book. That was unfortunate. We missed him. And he is in the book quite a lot. I'm going to say there's four. I mean, there's really like four main plot lines. We have the Elaine plot line, the Rand plot line, the Perrin plot line, which is really just at the beginning, and the Matt plot line. Unfortunately, according to the Wheel of Time Wikia, it's mostly an Elaine book. There are
Yeah.
the majority of chapters are in fact Elaine chapters, and we are not huge fans of the girl, unfortunately.
Which I don't think this is the first book. It's been like the majority Elaine as well. I think in a previous podcast we've talked about how Elaine's had several books where she's the largest percentage of screen time.
I think it's not just because it's Elaine herself, but because what her plot line is. For me, it was like I don't really care about the politicking of Andor when the fate of the world is at stake. Like like to compare it to A Song of Ice and Fire, you have these two plot lines of, you know, people maneuvering for King's Landing and the Seven Kingdoms, and then you also have the plot line of the White Walkers. And as reading like A Song of Ice and Fire, you're like, man, these people are so dumb. Like the people who are worried about King's Landing are dumb and don't get it. Like the White Walkers are coming. But here it's like she's a main character and a protagonist that you like. And so I feel like she just didn't get, like, this isn't that important in the scheme of things.
But don't we care a lot more about the King's Landing stuff in A Song of Ice and Fire? Like, what is the difference?
Yeah,
Why is it?
yeah, we do.
Why is that? Is it just the likability of the characters? I mean, we don't really like the characters in Song of Ice and Fire necessarily, but maybe they're just more compelling.
Yeah, and I think the scale is larger as well. Like King's Landing is like the whole continent, whereas this is just Andor. That is like another country here that doesn't even hold like that much influence overall.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it's just about the size of like almost like the cliffhangers in Path of Daggers, right? Where you have Tar Valon's about to be under siege, and you have Matt that got crushed by the wall. There's like all these huge things with the Sanchan going on, and then like you go into this book right at the beginning, and you're just in the politics of Andor, right? So like, I started reading the book. I put down one book, and I'm like so excited to pick up the next one, and it's like not even addressing the points that I was like excited about.
Yeah.
So that I think has a little bit to do with it as well.
It does split it up. I mean, we go into Perrin pretty quickly, which you said was a cliffhanger you were interested in, and then
Right.
Matt, another one. So it's not like it's just a long slog through the politics. There is some jumping around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Go ahead, kid.
I was gonna say, and that's a whole that happens reoccurring throughout the Wheel of Time, right? At the end of this book, there's a big cliffhanger with Matt as he leaves Abu Dar. In the next book, picks up, and it's going to do the same thing, right? Where, well, I guess you already said it's going to be from a different viewpoint at the same time, right? So Matt's not going to be a big part of that, right? But yeah,
Well, I mean, don't take that to mean that the characters in this book are not in the next book. It's just some events are happening same time, simultaneously. But Crossroads of Twilight is kind of regarded, I think we told you this already, Kaden, but it's regarded as like the worst book in the series.
Yeah, in terms of pacing and everything, I think books 9 and 10 and maybe part of 8 are part of what people consider the slog. After rereading, I think it's mainly book 10. But how are you feeling having just read book 9 that a lot of people say is super slow and like makes them not want to continue? How are you feeling in that regard?
I feel pretty good. I was surprised. I think because everyone's told me even like 7 a little bit, 7, 8, and 9 are just read and get through it, and it's worth it. And I felt a lot I think I already said this, but I felt more of a slog like getting through book 6 until the very end than I have readings book 7, 8, and 9. I think I'm a little jaded going into book 10 already just because of what people have said about it. It's taking me a little bit longer to like pick up the next one again.
Yeah.
Yeah, didn't you say you started Dresden Files? You picked up the first Dresden Files book in between?
Yeah, I've actually read the first. Well, I'm halfway through the second one now. They're pretty quick reads. So
Yeah.
I did start. I am into Crossroads of Twilight now, though. I'm a good 3 or 4 chapters, so I've started it. I'm getting through it.
Man, is there some way we can
But
plug
I'd say
Dresden?
overall. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, no, never mind. That's a dumb bit I was gonna do. Go ahead.
Well, I'm sure, Jake, I'm sure you're excited to hear that Kaden has put down Wheel of Time in favor of Dresden Files, because Jake is a known Dresden hater.
So I'm not really a hater, but I have this weird relationship with it because I don't get the huge hype for it. I've read the first 2 and I was like, I understand like what their I don't know, their top qualities are, and I'm just like, I don't feel a need to continue. But at the same time, they're like our most popular content as Fantology. So I'm like, wait, can we do a little a Dresden Files plug here to get this episode more views?
We have told you that you have to wait and read more into the series. The first few are not as strong. The series gets better and better, but you just don't trust us or something. I don't know what's going on here.
There's just so many other things that I would rather read compared to that. And it's not that I have anything against Jim Butcher. I really liked his Codex Illyria books. Like, I think he's a good writer. And I think in Dresden Files, he's a good writer. It's just not really the style I'm interested in. And to be fair, I think I listened to both of them, and I was not a fan of the narrator. He was just too overly dramatic and lots of humming and hawing. Couldn't handle it.
All right, that's Jake's defense.
I'll say they're very different styles, and it's really hard to compare the 2 books.
Yeah,
I get a lot of instant gratification from reading the first Dresden Files, where Wheel of Time is the long game. I think I've been at this for like coming up on a year and a half reading Wheel of Time here, and I'm just getting excited for the last.
It's funny. You're book 9 out of,
I guess, of the entire series, right?
Out of 14, 15 if you count New Spring, and it feels like you're almost done. But I think it's because when I was reading it, I think Crossroads of Twilight was the most recent book for such a long time for my journey in reading it. So like book 9 and 10, I'm like, oh, that's like almost the end. But you're like just over halfway.
Well, the last 3 are supposed to just be one book. So according to Robert Jordan's initial plan, he is pretty close.
Yeah. But anyways, we can jump back in it. So you're not really feeling like this is much of a slog. So that's good. I think it's one of those things where like you read it so much, and so the parts you don't like, you know what I mean, when you're rereading it, like you don't like even more because you like know what's going to happen later. So I think there's some of that bias there, and unfortunately I think veterans of the series have like put this bias out there to new people reading. So it's nice to see that isn't your take on it.
Yeah, I will say they're not like 1 through 5 are better than 7 through 9.
Right.
But that said, I haven't been like dreading books 7 through 9.
Yeah.
Which is the perception you're talking about, right? That like
that like you can barely, like you just have to like, it's a chore to get through. Yeah, they say like 7 through 10 is it. You know, they even include book 11, which is so dumb. People say like, oh, 7 onwards, it's bad until Brandon Sanderson picks up. But book 11 is such an amazing book. Robert Jordan really nailed his last book he wrote in. Anyways, rant over.
Jake is very much against the Sanderson fanboys who have the opinion that he saved the series.
It's just factually incorrect. I love Sanderson as an author. I think people are like blinded. They don't realize the weaknesses that he has in some of his stuff, and it's just a shame that they think oh yeah, good thing Sanderson finished it because Robert Jordan was just going to tank it anyways. When you read Knife of Dreams, this is my promise. When you read Knife of Dreams, you're going to be like, wow, that's a return to form. That was a really good book.
Yeah, I was talking to someone at work who said the same thing, and this person is a Sanderson fanboy a little bit. So he said, yeah, Knife of Dreams is Robert Jordan goes out with a bang. So
yeah, good to hear.
Don't be hating on all those
Ironically,
Sanderson fanboys.
Yeah.
Ironically, Kaden, you know this. My dad is reading Wheel of Time as well. He's probably been at it about as long as you have, maybe possibly longer. He's on Lord of Chaos right now, which is book 6. So the same part that you said was tough for you, and he's been slowing down. He's been slowed down greatly. So I'm hoping he can continue going. I'm hoping he has the same experience where the next books pick up for him again. Otherwise, he may not make it. I'm concerned.
Hopefully, it's like
Book 6 definitely.
Go ahead, kid.
So book 6 has definitely been the hardest one for me to get through so far of the whole series. So,
did you guys ever play with Hot Wheels, like the race tracks that you build, and they had like that booster section you could add that was like battery powered?
Yeah.
So that way you could like, it's like going across the track and then it helps it go. I feel like at the end of a lot of the books from like 6 onwards are like those booster pad things where it's like most of book 6, you're like, what's really happening? And then that huge climax for me was like, okay, now I'm ready to go for the next one. And that's how I kind of felt like most of the climaxes were from there on out until like the last 4 books, which were more high speed, more similar to like books 1 through 4.
I'd say a moment like that even within book or Winter's Heart was when the chapter where Tuon is introduced, where you've just been coming from all of Elaine's stuff, and they introduce this character where they don't say who it is, and at the end of the chapter they're like, oh yeah, the daughter of the 9 moons. And I think I texted Steven, I was just like, oh, here it is, finally. Like, yeah, I was super pumped. I'm like, okay, here we go. I'm into this now, like even more than I was. So
the Matt prophecy fulfillments are really good. Those are some of my favorite parts, and you're getting into some. There's going to be more. That's good stuff. Stuff that's been building up for books that you've been wondering about when it finally happens. Like you say, that's the long game payoff that you get from Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so
I like it even with Tuon. Sorry, Jake, go ahead.
No, you go.
Even with Tuon, right? She's such a mystery still throughout the whole book. Like, it's still building. Like, it's just like dropped a little bit in front of you. You know who she is a little bit, and you don't really know a lot about her still. And in the conflict at the end, she like fights with Matt, and you're like, wow, this girl can hold her own, and that's cool. And so you're still just like, wow, who is this person, and how's it's going to play out? So really compelling all around.
Before you find out she was a daughter of the 9 moons, how much thought have you been giving to all these like prophecies, mostly regarding Matt, but other characters and like the end of the series? Have you really like been speculating there? It's a different experience because all the books are written, whereas when I was reading them, they were still coming out. So I had lots of downtime to be like, what does this mean? You know, like what's going to happen here? Did you like have any guesses who it would be?
I'm trying to think. I don't think I'm trying to think back. I don't know if I really paid enough attention because I've been going through it so quick that I don't think I did have a lot of speculation. And I don't think there's anything in the previous books that would have told me she was one of the Sanchan. I'm trying to remember.
I think,
or was there?
I think there actually is. It's like, but I think it's before, or I can't remember if it was before he hears that about himself, or if it was just very much in passing. But I think there was.
Yeah, that sounds familiar because I remember I thought there was something from a previous review where I wanted to ask you about it. Caden was like, I don't want to spoil it, so we decided not to. But
I think somebody brought it up, and I was like, I don't. Remember.
And it's not. It doesn't point at Tuon directly because she's not really introduced. Until now, but I think it does point at the Sanchan.
Yeah, I think it says something like the court of the 9 moons or something like that in passing. Like really, I don't know. I definitely didn't see it coming when I first read them. And yeah, but going back to what you said about Tuon, she is such an interesting character because she's such a realized character. Like she's so, I don't know, like mischievous and almost outside of, like out of the norm for most of the other Shan-chan. You know, most of them are so like rigid, and probably because of her position in there, she can be herself. She's not really worried about all the other people because they're all below her.
Mhm.
But I just remember at the end of the book, I was like, man, she's going to be a really good match for Matt.
I did think that as well. Yeah, you kind of see that. I'm like, I was glad someone that can hold their own against Matt, and
Yeah. Little
kind of
role
like him,
reversal.
but girl form a little bit.
How's it gonna work though? I mean, she's
Well,
the
definitely is left
Empress.
up in the air,
Yeah.
and he kidnaps her, right? And just like, hey, you're my wife, by the way, which very subtle.
The
Kidnaps her.
scenes earlier too, where she offers to buy him from Thailand and then wants to buy his Ashendari. Is that how you say his
I think
cool
so, yeah.
weapon? Yeah. So
Yeah.
when those kind of flesh her out a little bit, and then you'll see later on. But yeah, like Jake said, she is definitely one of the better female characters in the series, and it's almost a shame that she doesn't pop up until now
Yeah.
because she's really good. We could have done with her more, I think, in earlier books.
Sorry. Um,
Okay, let's go off the prophecy thing a little more. Maybe you don't have a great
yeah.
answer to this, Kaden, but so that prophecy is fulfilled to some degree. We think we know at least how it's going to be fulfilled. What other things are kind of on your, like, what is in the horizon for you that you're hoping is answered? Like, what are you most curious about? Prophecies or just like mysterious events in general?
Okay. One, okay, I can't even remember. I thought it was about Perrin, but now I'm starting to wonder if it's Matt. Something about losing half the light to save.
That's Matt.
Is that
Yeah.
Matt? Okay, so that's a Matt
Uh-huh.
one.
Giving up half the light of the world to save the world. That is
Yeah.
that's a that's like my favorite prophecy. Actually, I'm gonna go on record and say that fulfillment
Okay.
is pretty awesome.
Okay. I have no
There's
idea what's gonna happen, but I feel like it could have something to do with Rand dying. I feel like Rand has to die in the end, and this is, could be completely wrong here. So just put it out there since I'm a first time reader, maybe it's interesting. But
Mm.
I wonder if it
that
has
was
something to do
something
with
we
that.
talked about a lot in the beginning, like the first 4 or 5 books, like trying to get your thoughts on, like, is he going to have to die or can he save the world without dying? He's pretty much convinced at this point he's going to have to die, right?
Well, I was for sure that he was gonna die just with like the taint. Now that the taint has been removed,
Oh yeah,
it
yeah.
opens that up more for me. That now I'm like, oh man, I'm not as sure that he has to die.
That was another thing last episode. He kept talking about trying to cleanse the taint, and we asked you, and you're like, I think you said you
Yeah.
didn't think it was going to happen, right?
I was really shocked. Okay, and I was talking to Steven about this
Yeah, me too.
before,
When I
and
first read it, I was like, what? I did not think this would even be possible.
It happened pretty quick.
yeah, and that was my thing. Like we spent 4 books on the, maybe it wasn't 4, maybe it was 3 on Bowl of the Winds, right? It just seems like everything in the series has been taking a long time, and so me thinking like, okay, he says he's going to cleanse Sidene. I'm thinking this is happening in book 13, right?
Yeah,
Like maybe near the end when the big battle comes, right? So to have it happen in this book, I was pretty shocked at the end, even during the battle when all said was done, that Sidene was cleansed.
yeah. I think if you go on a reread, you'll see some hints for him trying to figure out if it is possible, and if it is, like how to do it. Sorry, there's a mosquito. So there's like hints, like I think he talked to that scholar who was assassinated. I think he said something about
Oh, is
you
it
have to,
Herod Fell, something like that?
something like that. Yeah, I can remember
Yeah.
his name. But I think it was him he talked about, and there's a quote that Rand repeats after talking to him, saying like, "Oh, it has to be." I don't remember the line exactly, but basically the idea that he needs to use something like Shadar Logoth, that is a different evil, to kind of insulate and repel against the evil of the Dark One and stuff like that. But So there's little hints
the way it
going up
happens
to
is
it.
really cool. And yeah, and then what, like halfway through he talks to Nynaeve and says like, hey, I figured this out. Come
Yeah.
help me. I think one other thing is it happens really quickly after everything that goes down in Fire Matting. Then all of a sudden, like, okay, now's the time. We're gonna go do it. And
Yeah.
maybe Rand feels like he has to be that like kind of unpredictable to get away from his enemies who are like fairly omniscient. Like he's dealing with this Forsaken. I mean, not omniscient, but he's dealing with people who have spies everywhere and have a lot of magical abilities that let them know what he's doing. So I think he is smart in thinking that he's got to be pretty unpredictable. Like, okay, now's the time. Go, go, go.
Especially for something that big. Like, I think the Forsaken didn't even think it was possible, but it is such a huge thing that the Dark One did and would have earlier sent everything they had to stop it.
They do get warned about it. Like Moradin tells them, like, hey, Rand is going to try to do this. You guys need to be ready. But I don't think they necessarily believe that it could really happen until it's happening.
Yeah. You mentioned, Stephen, that it was cool how it happened. Let's see if Kaden can give us his perspective of what he understood and like the science behind how the taint, the Sidene was cleansed of the taint.
How soft versus hard magic-y was it, and how it worked?
Yeah.
I'll be honest. You guys, I already like I did not understand it at all, and you guys already has like explained more than like I understood already on this podcast. So
yeah.
So
No worries,
he uses Sidar to make this like conduit, right, through which Sidene can flow. And Jake, you probably understand even more than I do. But in doing this, he connects the Dark One evil with the Shadow Logoth evil and lets them kind of duke it out, and that gets rid of the taint, or what exactly happens?
So it's kind of like, so his whole thing was trying to figure out, like, you'd have to use Sidar to do it because Sidene is tainted. So you can't use what is dirty to clean itself, you know? But he was like, if we use Sidar, then it's going to have to touch Sidene, which is tainted, and it would just cause the same issue to happen to Sidar. Like, how do you get rid of it without causing more issues? And whatever that quote was from Harry Fell or whatever said something, if I remember right, it's kind of like a magnet, how the evil of Shadar Logoth and the evil of the Dark One are like opposites. So they're attracted to each other in that sense. And so, yeah, like Sidar was like a conduit. And then because they're at Shadar Logoth, that was like leeching off the taint. And then that's why Shadar Logoth at the end was just destroyed into a crater, because it was like kind of like matter and antimatter hit each other and this evil and then annihilated each other. Comment below how off we are in that description and clarify for us.
It sounds like we're close. You're close, at least. You're adjacent to what happened.
Google some theories on it, or some like explanations. It's more detailed, but it was definitely something I like read over and over to try to understand. Wait, what was happening here? Because it doesn't like give you a ton of explanation, right, in like a upfront exposition. But it is an example.
Are there any moments where Rand is thinking about this and then he's like thinking on the two wounds that he has, which are the same two evils that are like warring against each other? Like, that seems like it could be a good kind of navel gazy way of telling the reader what's going on.
I think that was one of the foreshadowing for sure, was with those two wounds, how they're fighting each other.
Sounds like we could have used more of it though, because as a reader, you want to understand, and it sounds like it just wasn't quite explicit for some readers.
I liked it. It was, I feel like it was a good way to let, like, there's so many theories on if it was going to be done and how it would be done. And I don't know. I thought it was really well done.
Well, I think we liked the way, but I think like Kaden would have preferred more explanation, a little more clarity, at least maybe at the end.
Yeah, I agree. I just figured something magic happened. I mean, that's kind of like the beginning too. Like at the, I'm thinking back to book one, right? They go to Teleron Riode for a lot of like those battles in the early part, and you have no idea what happens until later on. I think
Mhm.
that's just how Robert Jordan is, though, right? It just you take a lot for.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, he
to
definitely he
figure it
likes to
out.
put the clues in. Like he told everyone that they should have been able to figure out who killed Asmodean right away. He said it was very obvious, but in fact, it's definitely not.
That kind of
I
keeps me
think
up
this
at night
was
still.
I think this was done way better than the Asmodean thing. I think this was like the perfect balance of you don't know ahead of time just off the bat, but once it's over, you can go back and like, oh, these were like these hints for it, and this all makes sense within the world. I don't think you necessarily have to be able to predict it like how it's going to be for it to be a good foreshadowing and outcome.
That's true. Jake, so I'm curious. You kind of mentioned like potentially if Sidar touched Sidene that it would be tainted too. And I know, Rand's nervous that he can't pull this off, that he would fail. Was any of his worrying that he would just kill the one power for everyone? Or is that just me reading into kind of what you're saying and none of the
I think that
foreshadowing
was
there was part of it?
I think that was like the main issue behind it. Like, I mean, obviously, I don't know how much thought went into like how do you cleanse it in general, but I think the main question was how do we do this without like making a bigger issue, you know? But yeah, I think that was a big part of it, which is why Nynaeve, like they had to use Sidar, which is why Nynaeve led the circle, right?
And why she got, Rand entrusted her with the other Chodian Call figurine statuette, which broke. That stinks. I mean, we had this awesome magical artifact that let us channel like untold amount of power, and now it's gone. And at least
Very
the
convenient.
well, did I say Sidene? I mean the Sidar one, obviously. The Sidene one survived conveniently, although Cadswain swiped it. Could be a problem.
I mean, and the actual Chosen Call, or I don't know, is that what the big statues are called? Or is that just what let them access them?
Well, the statues are the
Statues,
Sangreals, right?
yeah, the statues are called the Choden Call. The other ones are called the access keys.
Okay, because those
I
are still
thought,
around, right? It
really?
was just
Okay.
the access keys that broke, or one of the access keys that broke, right?
I thought the access keys were the Choden Call, and that it was to access the giant Sangreals that didn't necessarily
Um,
have names. Is that wrong?
according to the wiki, it says the Choden Call are two giant Sangreal that were created during the War of Power.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
This is why Jake is our Wheel of Time expert.
so yeah,
I'm half expecting this to be Jake's personal wiki as well, not the.
no, I've spent a lot of time on this wiki. I've put none of my knowledge there. I'm I'm just a noob who reads it, but yeah.
Anyway, the action. Okay, let's talk about the action of the event with the Forsaken that were around. This is like the largest gathering of Forsaken we've seen. Well, we've seen them sitting around in their plush fireplace and hanging out and being evil. But now we're actually seeing them all fighting. Some fighting to different degrees. By my count, we had 6. Is that right? We have Demandred, Grandel, Arengar, Osangar, Sindane, and Mogideon. Are there any other ones lurking around?
Moradin.
Well, but
Well,
he's
I
not
don't think
actually
he was
in
there at the.
Yeah.
Was he
the
not actually
battle.
there?
I don't think so.
He just has his cronies go.
That seems like a big oversight.
Yeah.
Well, especially sending Mogideon, because she just kind of like, I mean, her point of view is just like, I'm gonna go hide in the trees. Like, I don't think she did a single thing. So.
No, she doesn't. Yeah, total.
She
whip.
didn't she like not want to because she's like, I'm not going to do this now or something like that. I could be remembering.
I think
that
she
wrong.
said, Moradin will never know that I didn't do anything. I'm just gonna go.
Yeah.
So we find out that Osangar was Deshiva the whole time. He's killed. We find out that Sindane is Lanfear, which I think like you should have been able to kind of figure out a little bit. But like that wasn't a huge shocker, was it?
Well, so I mean, that's who I thought it was. And then the last book, there's a part where they're like, oh yeah, Sindane is weaker than Lanfear. Like they explicitly say that, which made me think, okay, well, I thought it was Lanfear, but it's not because they said that. And it turns out it's just Lanfear, but weaker. So I felt a little gypped on the foreshadowing there.
Do you understand why she's a little bit weaker? She
No.
thinks, I know she thinks about this a little bit. She thinks back to when it's either the snakes or the foxes, whichever one she visits.
The elfin.
Yeah, leech out some of her power. That's why she's weaker.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah, so there's a canon, like there's a real reason for it. And I think it was also used as a misdirect to make you like not really sure if it's her, but you're like, wait, it has to be right, but there's a discrepancy there.
Yeah, I was misdirected. That said, I don't feel that bad about it because it still doesn't feel like that big of a plot point. I mean, you find out who these people are, but it's not earth-shattering. I think maybe it is. Maybe I don't.
I mean, the fact that Lanfear is back, that's important. I mean, she was a pretty big force in the early books, and she's still obsessed with Luce Theron, obviously.
I still was hoping Moraine would show up again. But if the Dark One's the one bringing the souls back, then it's not likely. But
yeah, interesting. How does that work with the philosophy and like religion? That like the creator obviously can with the heroes of the Horn and things like that, but then also the Dark One's called the Lord of the Grave. So it seems like they both have the power, but why doesn't the creator do that more?
Why does
the creator is very hands off?
Yeah, laissez-faire and all that. But something that I didn't really understand the first time reading it through is I thought if someone was bale-fired, they could not be reborn at all. I thought they were like out of the pattern because it talks about like the thread being like plucked, but they'll still be reborn. It just means the Dark One can't like bring them back.
Oh, really?
So
when the wheel spins again to the next age, they could come back.
They'll come back. But that's why the Forsaken numbers are going down. And I thought they're going down just because they were like obliterated from reality in general. But there's something I read recently within like the past year that confirmed that they'll be reborn within the wheel later. But, yeah. Going back to sorry, I have like another prophecy thing. Just because we talked about like the mechanics of cleansing Sidene and some of the prophecies with Matt. I know there's been talk of this and like prophecies and epilogues or prologues and stuff like that. Something about the three becoming one, and like that's key to the last battle. Do you have any idea what that means? I had so many theories for this.
I hope I don't disappoint you by saying I don't really. The only thing that comes to mind right off the bat is the bond with three. All three of them bonding Rand. I'm trying to think if there's anything else off the top of my head.
I don't want to really say all my theories because I don't want to leave one out or include one that is the truth. Right, but I definitely thought about that as well.
I don't know. There's like three different powers kind of going on, right? With Sidene, Sidar, and then the Dark One's power to. Yeah, I'll think about it, Jake. Get back.
Yeah, I had a theory is like maybe, and then I could like this is fine that this isn't real, but I was like maybe Avienda Min and Elaine all share like a third of Ilyena's soul, and that's why they're all like marrying Rand, and they're gonna like do a fusion Ha from Dragon Ball Z and become Ilyena again. Like, I don't know why I thought that was gonna be a big point. It was like there's no evidence for that, but that was me trying to wrap my head around the polygamy going on.
And you can't tell Kaden what's not going to happen. Maybe he was honing in on that same theory.
That was number one on my list.
I feel like it was a far-fetched and dumb enough theory that I thought as a first-time reader that it's fine letting people know that isn't real.
I'm not offended.
So the polygamy thing is a thing now with Min, Avienda,
Yeah.
and Elaine. They triple bond Rand, and Elaine has one of her best lines where she demands to have of Rand what her sisters have had, and Min and Avienda are okay with it. And I don't know, like, should we even get into this, because this is one plot point that I doesn't like sit well, super well with me, but I usually just kind of like brush aside and be like, yeah, it's kind of weird, but yeah,
I mean,
it's what
that's why I had the
happens.
Ilyena theory. That's why I had the 3-in-1
Yeah.
Ilyena theory.
You were trying to make it better.
Well, I don't know. I think it's also interesting how this is just like a thought I've had, like a philosophical thing. In our society, polygamy is very much looked down upon, but at the same time, polyamory is like more accepted nowadays, and I don't really see the big difference there. I know
At least
polygamy
there's
is
some
much,
commitment with
yeah,
polygamy. Yeah.
and like polyamory there is as well. Like polygamy is a version of that where it's one male with multiple women, whereas polyamory could be any sort of combination. And I know in the Rafe Judkins, the showrunner for the Wheel of Time adaptation, has said it's going to be more polyamory than polygamy. But like, let us know in the comments, and Kaden, let me know your thoughts if you feel any different. But like, is there really a difference between that? Is it weird that our culture right now sees polygamy as bad, but polyamory is like, oh yeah, that should be okay? I don't know.
Yeah, the one thing I'd say here is in the Aiel culture already it's okay, right? So
Yeah,
at least on Avienda's side, it's like kind of normal. And technically Rand is kind of Aiel, right?
he's half
Yeah.
Aiel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
So
we'll do a quarter since he wasn't raised in the culture, so he
all right, all
loses
right.
half of his Aielness.
So maybe it's less of a weird thing. I mean, I think it's still weird. Even in Will of Time, I think people think it's weird, right? But
Yeah,
a little bit less just because of that cultural impact there.
yeah. And it's interesting how it's done, where it's very much them like going to him and saying, "This is how it's going to be done." Which I think a lot of the reason in real life culture that polygamy is looked down upon is because it's seen as um,
Kind of male
done
dominant,
in,
and
yeah, done in a patriarchal way. But, whereas I could tell Robert Jordan was trying to like upend that, like
yeah,
how could
that is a
polygamy
good point. Yeah.
how could polygamy exist in a society that is already like more matriarchal than ours is, kind of thing. But yeah, so they do that. Continuing on, they do that, and then Avienda, Min, and Brigida, all three of them have to go get drunk, right, to not think about,
Right.
not feel what's going on. Because so Avienda and Lane are first sisters now, so they've done a special bond that way, and all three of them are bonded to Rand. I don't think Min is first sisters with them, is she?
No.
No. So Min can feel Rand's, like Rand through the bond. Avienda can feel Elaine and Rand, and Brigida can feel Elaine. So they're all this like hodgepodge. And then Alana's out there somewhere feeling Rand as well. I always forget about Alana.
No, well,
Alana's the
she
worst.
fainted, right? So she was.
Oh, yeah. She fainted right when they bonded him, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Was she there?
Maybe she was
I
out.
can't remember. Yeah.
She's not. No, she's not. I don't believe she's there. Yeah. So
She's
I
in
guess
Target.
Min is a little bit on the outside here. She doesn't have the same level of bond that Avienda and Elaine do.
Well, just to each other. Like she's on equal footing in terms of Rand.
Well, yeah, but
She's also getting all the FaceTime with Rand right now. So for the most
Yeah.
part, right? So
It's interesting. I didn't really expect for some reading that you would be able to bond. Well, I guess that makes sense. I was like, but Min she can't channel. But I'm like, warders can't channel and they're bonded. But yeah, but they bonded. Did they bond? They just bonded Rand. So
they bonded
that's why
Rand as a warder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rand didn't bond them, which I think we've seen examples of that already, right? Of male channelers bonding women, and it's it's done differently, and it's a different kind of connection. But so that's interesting. Like somehow Min, even though she couldn't channel, she bonded Rand when Rand could have bonded her.
Tune in next time for Jake's scientific explanation of how that one works.
Love triangles and the Wheel of Time. Love quadrilaterals.
I was going to say a little bit bigger. Yeah.
All right. What else happens in Rand's storyline? So we go, the rest of it turns into, before we do the cleansing, it is the hunting of the rogue Ashaman, which takes him to Farmading, which is an interesting city where channeling is not possible for the most part because of these huge Terangrial, which basically turn the whole thing into a giant steading. How was this for you, Kaden? Like, was it too much of a gimmick thing that wasn't super important, or did you find it interesting? Like, it kind of sandwiches a lot of the other action, and I don't know. For me, like, the Rogue Ashaman, do they really seem that important compared to everything else that's going on?
The only thing I wondered was like, would they? I didn't know if they were, I don't know if these rogue Ashaman were dark friends or just trying to kill Rand because they want him out of the way.
It's kind of vague in that sense. You're like, they're antagonists, and this is a lot with the antagonists in all the time. Like, in such a black and white world with like good and evil, a lot of the antagonists, you don't know, are they evil, or do they just have different goals?
Right. And so that one of the things that I'm like, it makes sense if Rand wants to get rid of them before he goes to cleanse Sidene, just so he doesn't have 4 more people trying to come kill him while he's doing it. So I didn't know if that was the inspiration. I do agree. I thought the action, I liked the fight with him and I just forgot his name, starts with an R. Rochide. And
yeah, the one that he kills.
Yeah, I thought I was a little disappointed that there wasn't more. I mean, like, Paul Thane is there the entire time, and it kind of seems like that whole thing just kind of fell apart. So I was expecting throughout there to be a bigger. I guess I wasn't really expecting Sidene to get cleansed yet, and I was expecting something bigger to happen between Pod and Fane and Rand in the city.
Like, Fane sets up this ambush, but it doesn't really get a hit in and just kind of runs away, and the house collapses, and then they're done with Farmading after Cadsuane gets them out of there.
It felt kind of like a D&D side quest, Yeah,
a little bit.
Like something bigger is looming, and we can't get there yet. So let's go do this. I thought it was a cool bit of like world building with the Terangrial that prevents you from channeling, and then also how Cadsuane had those, like, what did she refer to them? Like, kind of like the wells. The wells that allowed her to channel. But if you've ever played the Lost Mines of Phandelver campaign in D&D, it felt very much like, for some reason, the storming the Red Guard's house, for anyone who's played that campaign.
Very specific memory.
That's what when we played that campaign, Steven and I played it together. When we played it together, that's like the setting that came to mind, was this Farmading place.
It's like you want to do the main thing, but the dungeon master's like, no, you can't do the main thing yet. You got to do the other thing. It's almost like you're being forced into it.
For me, it was more like, I want to do this main thing, but I could just grind and kill these low-level PCs NPCs right here and get some loot first.
Yeah, pick up some loot and some easy experience.
Yeah, like it's kind of like Breath of the Wild when you're like, I got to go cleanse this divine beast, but I just found this, I don't know.
Got to go take out this little, encampment of moblins, right? Like, that's more important right now. We got to do that.
The one thing that I think did come out of this overall for the story was this is where Rand and Cadsuane finally start to get along.
Yeah.
So I think that was, if nothing else, I think that's a larger story point that came from the side quest that will play a bigger part later on.
I really want to talk more about Cadsuane, but I don't want to until probably the end of the series, and just what your thoughts are in her whole point in the series. I think she plays an interesting role. I think another cool thing here was it the last book when he rescued the Damani, or the Soldam, or whatever they're called, and she's with them in Farmading. I can't remember her name. It's like, it starts with an A, right? Is it?
Yeah.
Alvina.
She's the super powerful one, right?
Olivia.
Yeah, Olivia. Yeah, she's like more powerful than any other, like more powerful than Nynaeve, than anyone really. And I don't know. I thought she was an interesting character of like, do you really trust her? Do you not? Because she's so powerful and also used to be on the enemy side. But I think she proves herself to this point in this part of the book.
So we're already long on time, but we do want
Yeah.
to just kind of jump into the other plot points at least a little bit. So the Perrin part, it was all at the beginning. Events real quick. So he takes off after Fail, Alejandre, and Morghese, and he's got his camp. The camp's got a bunch of different loyalties, including Massima, who he finds out is meeting with the Shan-Chan for some reason, and the Shan-Chan are lurking nearby. And in the meantime, Fail has become a Gaishan to Savannah, like a personal servant of hers. She becomes embroiled in the politics of that camp immediately, which is probably a good thing for her. Like now she's got people, she's playing people off each other. She's got that possibility. So things are maybe not terrible for her, but she is still captured. But it is bad for Perrin because he gets involved with Barrelane, or at least the whole camp thinks that he has now slept with Barrelane while his wife is missing. And what's your opinion on this? Because I think it's super lame that the camp immediately like assumes that this would have happened. Like, come on, like trust Perrin a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think the circumstances too. Like, didn't they pull him back like half frozen to death, right? Like,
yeah, it's like this.
I think
it's annoying to me that they assume this of him.
I think a lot of it's like poorly executed. Like, there's no real development for me to see. When his wife is gone, he would think, I need to confide in Barrelane so much, to get to a point where people would even start those rumors. And then also, like, I guess I could see there'd always been some sort of rumor, like Barrelane would spread rumors,
yeah, she probably
about them, but
she was fine with it.
I was just like, why? I don't know. Like, how does that make sense? That I don't know. Like, I could see going to her for advice of what to do next because she's experienced, but like he basically like it seems like he goes to her to be comforted because he's so sad, right? And that just didn't really make sense to me. Like there wasn't enough setup for that to feel realistic.
it did feel like. So there's a part where Perrin leaves the tent, and there's like two of Barrelane's maids, or I don't know what they are, and they're all giggly. And that scene to me made it seem like they were the ones spreading the rumors. I can't remember exactly what goes down, but that was the impression I left, right? So it did seem like Barrelane was intentionally spreading those rumors, that it wasn't just the camp saw this happen intentionally. Just people are happy to jump on gossip, right? And that happens all throughout the Wheel of Time. So.
Yeah, it is the theme of the series, how rumors spread and how information is misunderstood. Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so we leave off with Perrin. Perrin's pause on him. We'll pick up in the next book. So Matt, we already talked about kind of the Tuon thing, some of the things that were going on there, but most of his plot revolved around getting once again embroiled in a plan to save women that need his help, which is helping these Aes Sedai who are stuck there with the Shan-Chan all around. This goes somewhat successful. I mean, he gets away. He has to take Tuon, which he was not planning on doing, but overall, it's kind of a fun little. I mean, it's nice to have Matt back, and he's a fun character to follow. I enjoyed his escape here. I enjoyed most of his plotline in Ebudar.
Yeah, nothing else really too notable. He fights the Golem once in this book again.
He does pick up his new character.
New buddy. Yeah.
Noel, right?
No, yeah, yep. So don't know who he is yet, really.
Yeah, he's kind of mysterious and, just happens to show up and he's helpful. Yeah.
And the night that Matt leaves, he coincidentally shows up again. It's like, oh, you're leaving? Same. It's like, let's tag along. So not suspicious in the slightest.
No, definitely not. Yeah. All right. And then, Jake's opinion. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just, I feel like Matt is like mainly comedic relief for this book. And then I thought it was cool how most of the Aes Sedai he's trying to save are actually on the tower side. And so in like part of the series, you have like rebels versus the tower, and you're definitely on the rebel side. But this was showing, like kind of showing that there's good people on both sides. And so I thought that was a cool aspect of it.
because now we're against the Shan-Chan, who seem like they're, just our antagonists. But then we have Tuon, who's part of the Shan-Chan, who we like. So there's all sorts of different shades cast on all the different factions.
Yeah.
Okay, then the Elaine part. We talked about it a little bit. The politics happen. She gets drugged with fork root and almost assassinated, but she's killed, or not killed, she's saved from being killed by David Hanlon, who
seems shady.
Nice of him. Yeah, he's very shady. That's nice of him to save Elaine, but at the same time, we definitely don't trust this guy, so he could be trouble going forward. And then she meets with Egwene. Egwene's not in this book hardly at all, but she does meet with her there. She allows the Borderlanders to cross Andor. And then she learns at the end that the other claimants to the throne will be besieging Camelin soon, and politics continue. Exciting.
Didn't men give her a viewing in this book, or is that in the next one?
She, as far as being pregnant.
Yeah.
That happens. Yeah.
So I can't remember if that plays a role in this book at all, or mainly the next one.
It's kind of small. People know she's pregnant because of men, and so they just tell her like, oh, make sure you're eating this, or get your rest and stuff like that. I don't know the impact you're thinking about, but it's
okay. Maybe it's the next one.
Basically, she's pregnant, and that's about it. I think in this book.
It is, Jake. Yeah, it's later.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Anything else worth mentioning for Elaine? Yeah.
How much to say she has her moment. We talked about when they bond Rand, and she demands her right.
Yes.
Pretty funny.
She wants her Far Snows experience.
Yeah.
A little forced.
Oh, yes.
Oh, man.
I think one thing, okay, I'll give Elaine something here. She does a good job of putting people that she can trust in positions where they're going to help her out. Like in this regard, I think she's a better leader than Rand. Like she deals with Egwene and says, Egwene, here's the situation. Let's work together. Let's help each other out. She talks with the Borderlanders and gets them to kind of, to manipulate events in her favor. She gets Brigitte to be in charge of her Queen's Guard. And I think there's probably some other examples, but unlike Rand, who can't trust anyone, and some of it is circumstances, but on the same time, Elaine's also in a position of power where people are coming after her. So I just think in general, Rand does a poor job of this, and Elaine does a much better job.
Yeah, but I think it's totally justified for Rand. After how many times he's been betrayed or tricked.
He's got definite PTSD over all that. So,
and he doesn't have the experience where she's been raised to know how to delegate and get things done and lead. Cool. So moving on to the top three and bottom three.
Yeah. Okay. Closing segment. I think we didn't spend as much time talking about the actual plot points of the book, but I think the other, the conversation at the beginning was more interesting. Let's, okay. So top three, bottom three from this book only. If you want to bring up any other plot points, now's the time to sneak them in to your top three or bottom three. Who's starting off?
I'll start.
We're all trying to frantically come up with ours.
Yeah.
Jake's got his, top three.
Oh, no, I'm doing bottom. We're doing bottom three first?
Yeah, bottom three first. That's right.
So I'm going to say number three. So the least worst would be Paden Fane, just because, he's there in Farmatting, but it could have been, I feel like he was underutilized there. It could have been cooler.
Yep.
And then next, who was I going to say? Oh, I was going to say Perrin. Just come on, man. So disappointing that the whole Bear Lane thing, and just, I don't know. But number one.
Yeah, not leading well, unfortunately.
Number one worst character isn't a main character, but just fails so spectacularly. It's kind of a combo with Davram, or no, not Davram, Dashiva and Elza. Just because they were the miscommunication, or I guess Dashiva, who is Osangar,
right,
he's been hiding under this alias as Dashiva and Ashaman. He's so close to Rand, and during the fight when they're cleansing Saidin, he goes to try to kill Rand, and gets killed because he's mistaken as an Ashaman. So his whole disguise totally backfires on him, and he's just bail fired.
Because Elza's a dark friend.
Yeah. So she
Right.
she sees Osangar as the Shiva and thinks, oh, this is an Ashaman. I got to kill him.
Right.
And like doesn't think, oh, this won't be bad. So
that's a good fail. Okay. Nice top three. Nice bottom three.
Yeah.
Kaden, do you have an entry?
Yes, I'm gonna have to change mine up a little bit here though now. So I will put yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go with Thailand for number 3. Because I know we kind of debated this in the last podcast, and she just doesn't have a lot of power before when she was queen of, or I think she's queen. I think that's her title, the Budar.
Mm-hmm.
But the Chan roll up, and she's getting all buddy with them, and it feels like maybe she's got something good to go for her, but really the Chan still control what she has. So I feel like she really just is kind of a puppet in wherever she is. So that's why she's number 3. Yeah, number 2 I had, or maybe I should come back because I did have Pot and Fane as my number 2 because of what happened. But I'll switch it and go for Riotin because he actually died in the fight with Lan.
He's this great blade master, and I mean it's hard to stand up to Lan.
I was gonna say, yeah, but still, he threw in his lot with Fane and it didn't get him anywhere. And then I had Osangar as well for number 1. But I think even more sad than like the whole fail there is that he's now been killed twice, right? Like he came back and got killed again, and literally in both times he has done nothing.
How many chances does he get?
Yeah. So
it's like, man, he was so close to Rand for such a long time. Like, could have done something, but nope.
All right, my bottom 3. I think it's kind of a cop-out to say the Forsaken and Giant. Okay, I'm going to do 2 Forsaken. I'm sorry, 2 Forsaken are coming in. So Moghedien's going in for being a wimp, basically, and not helping out the cause. Very poor showing from her. Number 2, I'm going to put in Perrin's camp follower people. Basically, whoever believed the rumor that he slept with Berylane, I think that's lame, and I think they should have had more trust in him. And yes, I get it. It's a divided camp, and there's extenuating circumstances. It's a bad situation, but come on, let's stand up for the guy a little bit. I think that's lame. And then my number 1 is going to be Moradin because I think he displays very poor leadership of the Forsaken, just ordering them around and not explaining enough, and ultimately they spectacularly fail. And at the same time, I'm also curious, like, why is a Shamael rewarded by the Dark One with leadership after, like, he dies as well? Like, he does a poor job. He gets killed a few times by Rand and then ultimately, finally done away with. And then his reward is to come back as Moradin and be the leader. Whereas people like Lanfear, who are killed, come back and they're like, this is your last chance or you're done with. And Moradin's got your leash. Like, that just doesn't seem fair. And I don't understand why Moradin gets this acclaim.
To be fair, he only died once. Rand thought he killed him the other times.
Well, I know, but like he fails more than once.
He fails. I think there's something to be said about his loyalty. Lanfear, how much of what she is doing is for her loyalty to the Dark One?
Yeah,
0%. And then also, I've heard this argument, and I don't know like how well this pans out, but I've heard that since Ishamael was never like securely sealed into the Dark One's prison, like with the rest of the Forsaken, like he could interact with the world, that since he was alive and conscious for that long a time, he just went crazy. And so it was like not really held responsible.
Like he has been out in other times and caused a bunch of problems.
Well, that's what I mean. He was never fully sealed away, which is why at the prologue of the first book, he's talking to Luce Theron. And so for not being sealed away, he was like mentally aware from that time until the present and just kind of went crazy. And so when he dies and comes back as Moradin, that part of him is healed, and so now he's more capable, I guess. I mean, there is a big tone shift in the Ishamael from book 1 to Moradin now.
I this could be way off too. It seems like so he draws on the Dark One's power more directly than the other ones, right? And they're always like the other Forsaken are like, oh, that's scary. Like I wouldn't do that except for in the dire circumstances. So I don't know that this is true, but it feels like to me that the Dark One would have a lot more control over him because of that, which is another reason why maybe he's the nameless. But that could be way off and not true. But that's a theory I have first time going through this.
You'll get more into that type of thing later as well. Yeah. I think
one other person that like Demon Dread, like feels like he's been like hyped up to be the big bad Forsaken, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So to go with your point, Steven, like I would think that he would be the nameless though.
He doesn't have a great showing in the battle either. Like he's not able to accomplish much, which is a little disappointing from how much he's been hyped up and how cool he seems.
Yeah, and again, I think it goes back to motivation. Like I think he's loyal to the Dark One more so than Lanfear, but it's like, and this is kind of a weak part of the Forsaken in general. They're all kind of there just because they have a grudge against Rand. At least most of the men Forsaken are. Like, as you know, like it's not really
their motivation is all kind of the same. They're jealous of Rand because Luce Theron one up to them in some way.
Interesting ones. Asmodean, that wasn't his reasoning for it, and Ishamael, that wasn't his reasoning for it. But and I guess Arengar is the one who did the he just like making shadow spawn. He was just kind of crazy.
He was Belthamel or Agenor, one of the two.
Well, yeah, I thought
Agenor. That's what Osangar.
Osangar is Agenor.
Yeah, Osangar is Agenor. I get confused because you think Agenor would become Arengar to keep the A's, but
right.
But yeah, so Osangar, like he was just kind of crazy and evil, but anyways, so I don't know. Maybe that's the justification for why Moradin is nameless.
All right, top 3.
All right, top 3. I'm gonna go Rand, Nynaeve, and then I'm gonna say Tuan. Honestly, okay. So Tuan number 3, mainly because of how she reacted to Matt kidnapping her, and she was just like, "Oh, okay," and just like.
She always thinks that she has the situation under control, even though she's been literally kidnapped.
Yeah, and I just love like her. She had that mindset. Like when she's first introduced, you could tell like, okay, here's a key player on the field now. Like you can't really predict what's going to happen with her. And then Nynaeve and Rand are tied for first for cleansing Saidin, and just thinking about like, I think the way I understood it, they channeled all of the power through, like if the power of Saidin and Saidar are in like pools of water, all the water from each pool was channeled through the Chodan Call in order to cleanse Saidin. And that's just, I don't know, so cool. Rand had a really cool book, in my opinion.
Power 3. Okay, Kaden.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jake. I think that overall the main characters had a really strong showing in this book. But my number 3, I'm going to, maybe controversial. I'm going to go with Cadswain, because I actually don't really like her. But
no, she was good. She was good in this book.
She did do really good, right? I don't really like the character, but she got closer to Rand, which was her goal, and she successfully defended Rand and Nynaeve during the final battle, right? So without her, really, like I don't think Saidin would have got cleansed. So yeah, Catswain's in the top 3. Yeah, I'm going with Matt as number 2, mostly because I just love Matt, and I feel like if he has a good book, he has to make my top 3. But I just think it's cool that he survived the Golem twice now, which I think is a huge thing. And then he also successfully escaped from the Sanchan and Ebudar. Well, I think he has, at least. He's getting there. And then number 1, 2, yeah, I mean, can't get around it. Rand and Nynaeve together, cleansing Saidin is just pretty, if you're ranking in terms of like power and success, they kind of nailed it on the head. So that was my top 3.
Yeah, it's hard to avoid Rand at number 1. So I mean he cleansed Saidin, right? That's not bad. So we'll go. I'll follow you guys and say he's number 1. We're unanimous there. Number 2, trying to find someone else interesting that you haven't already taken, because this was like a hero book, right? Like in contrast to the previous one, our heroes are doing much better. So it's easier to choose our top 3. I'll throw Min in there. I don't know if she's number 2, but like she does continue to bravely go into dangerous situations with no magical power while she's surrounded by people who do have magical power. So that's cool and nicely done by her. So she can be number 3, and number 2 can be, I think it's got it. I can't say anyone other than Matt. Matt did really well. He saved the Aes Sedai. He got Tuan. He got out of the city. Things were very much stacked against him. Nice job, Matt. That's my top 3. Not original. Top 3s were not original. All right. So Winter's Heart.
Done. Yeah. Just one more book of things being a little slow, Kaden, and then I don't know if the right word is uphill or downhill, because downhill sounds like you're going down and bad, but it is, think of it like going downhill on a bike, because it's going to just go so fast from Knife of Dreams on. So
I'm excited. No, this is good. So.
Yeah, I have much more confidence in you, Kaden, that you will finish the series and enjoy it than my father, who I cannot say with any confidence that he will finish, because he is struggling right now in book 6, and
he's got to get those boost pads.
He's got to hit the boost pads.
Zoom. Yeah,
he's got to get to Dumai's Wells.
Yeah,
that's the boost pad that's
the big boost pad.
Yeah. All right. If you like what we're doing, if you want to see our other Wheel of Time reviews or reviews of many other series, you can find more of Phantology at www.phantologybooks.com. Check out our YouTube and sub there for lots of different content, including videos, including funny videos, skits, YouTube skits. Yeah, I mean skits.
BookTube stuff.
Skits singular. But more is coming, more BookTube stuff. We recently did a video on the iceberg of science fiction and fantasy, like which series are most pervasive at the top to lesser known at the bottom. So that was fun. So yeah, there's a lot going on at Phantology. If you want to just chat with us, you can do that on Discord, and invites are in the episode descriptions.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
All right, Kaden, thank you again for giving us your first time perspective. Thank you, Jake, for your expert perspective. And I don't know if I can thank myself, because I probably made a bunch of mistakes, but I'm your host.
Thanks, Steven.
My expert reading of the wiki. That's why you guys have me here, just to read the wiki.
All right. See you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Phantology. If you'd like to let us know your opinions on all things sci-fi and fantasy, join our Discord. Invites are in the episode descriptions below. If you'd like to support the show, like these fine folks here, you can do that at patreon.com/phantology_books. Patrons get early access to new episodes, exclusive postings, and exclusive Discord benefits. But of course, just listening and watching and sharing with your friends and family is support enough. Journey before destination all.